Turin, the first week of January, we were 4 people. 4? Yeah. And the week after, we were 3. And then we were 20. It grew this fast, and it really surprised us all. We are trying to get organized, but it's really difficult because we're so many and we are all teenagers and we don't have the experience.
Movements are erratic beasts, slippery, changeable, perhaps necessarily anarchic and untamed. They're almost indefinable. A movement's not a project or an activity or an event. A movement doesn't have predetermined outcomes, milestones, or jump to funders' demands. And it's not an NGO with an infrastructure or a simple campaign with a clear, dedicated focus. Rather, with a movement, what we're seeing, movements are a driving force for making change happen. They unite people, they build momentum, they catalyze interest, they ignite passion, they inspire change.
Over the years, I've really studied movements, and something I noticed early on was how many of those were fighting metaphors, and that really didn't work for me, and I found myself turning much more to nature. I remember once seeing this incredible flock of starlings. It's called a murmuration, and looking at it and how it's such an organic flow and fluid, free movement in itself. It's almost like the head of that flock isn't necessarily the leader. They can be anywhere within the movement. So I feel really inspired by that organic flow of leadership and of movements.
The movement to repeal the Eighth Amendment was enormous and really diverse. I felt like there was a real contagious atmosphere of doing what you can. So my experience was like suddenly a switch had tripped and everybody was launching their own initiatives. There was Knit for Repeal, Dance for Repeal, Market for Choice. And I remember at loads of the events I attended, there was a similar kind of conversation where somebody would pipe up with a new plan for a new initiative, and everyone, there was just this kind of sea of encouragement around them. And I really think that was pivotal for the movement, because it shaped its inclusivity, and it meant that anything that anyone could do was important.
So I think in thinking and in planning around the litigation work, we always project, right? We make projections around, well, this is what stage 1 is going to look like, this is what stage 2 is going to look like. But there are things in between that we're not able to see. I think we don't have the eye, or we're not trained to see. The part that's beautiful and people don't really talk about is going through the process publicly, and losing together. At least for me, there was that overwhelming feeling of being held, right? But it's a thing that wasn't planned. Even in that moment, it's a question of, what else should I be doing? Because remember, you're not just showing up for yourself, you're showing up for a community.
Movements are not static, like an organization or even a campaign. And some of the most effective movements resist structures and bureaucracies and institutional behavior. Social movements often appear intangible. Movements are an art, not a science.
Movements are born of pain and anger. They navigate uncertainty and chaos using the imperfect tools of the law to seek justice and relief. Movements are sustained by creativity and community, and they channel their momentum, chaos, and power through strategy, empathy, and joy.
Because we're building these relationships with each other, and we're visioning together, and we're working together, and we're being in struggle with each other as well, I think that our movements are growing stronger. And I think that in the face of oppressors growing stronger as well, that we will also grow stronger. Because we will be together and in relationship, we're stronger. Even when it feels like you are taking a step out on your own to do this work, you're not alone. You are then part of a long legacy of organizers and movement builders and change makers and land protectors and like water defenders. And all of these people, you are now part of that legacy, and you are now part of that movement, and you are never alone in this work. And so I think it's really important to like understand when we are going into these spaces and we are organizing, it's not just about us. It's about how do we bring all peoples forward so we can all live this world that we are envisioning that is free of oppression, free of racism, free of all of those things that keep us held down. We do not win alone.